The western side of Norway is just about the perfect place for a summer road trip. It is one of those countries where you don't need too much of a plan. You can almost pick a direction and start driving, and no matter where you go, you're going to discover new things and have an amazing experience. In this video, we'll be sharing our 10-day adventure through the West Norweigan Fjords and surrounding mountain areas. Every day was jam-packed full of amazing scenery, beautiful waterfalls, and a lot of fun activities. There will be recognisable landmarks along the way, but some of our favourite experiences were just things that caught our eye on the side of the road. And that's why we think Norway is such an amazing place for a road trip, and travelling by car is the best way to go. So we start our road trip not in a car, but by rail. We had to make our way from Oslo to the town of Stavanger all the way on the west coast. As long as you book the sleeper car, it's a very comfortable trip and you'll arrive bright and early the next morning feeling refreshed. We would collect our rental car at the train station and head west into the mountains. But first we wanted to explore the main town of Stavanger. And this is where we were first exposed to the old wooden style houses that surround the harbours up and down the west coast. While they were not as colourful as some of the cities we'll get to later on in the video, it was still a very charming place to walk around. But we were there very early in the morning, so not much was open. So after exploring the main town centre, we thought we'd hit the road and head towards the mountains. On the way we stopped off at the Monument of the Three Swords, where a Viking battle took place nearly 1400 years ago. We headed west towards the mountains, and over the course of an hour, the scenery went from fairly bland to a very dramatic backdrop that only grew in intensity the deeper into this valley we went. What we didn't know at the time is that this was just a small taste of what was to come. We found accommodation in a town called Kjeragbolten. The place had a nice homely feel, and interestingly, no reserved rooms. You just took what was empty. The next morning, we woke up with just one thing on our minds. This, the Kjeragbolten. We had discussed for more than 6 months whether we would stand on this rock or not. So we had a very exciting but very nervous drive out to the starting point of the hike. It's about a 6-hour round trip to the rock and back, and while it's steep in some sections and it can get very slippery, it's generally okay for inexperienced hikers as long as you've got a reasonable level of fitness. Having said that, Arn did it and she has no fitness. So, I guess the big question you're all wondering is, did we stand on the rock or not?
So we both did it.
I did it.
How was it for you?
It was so scary. I would not do it again. I don't know. I don't know.
The question is, was it worth it?
No, I wouldn't do it again. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So while we went up with no intention to stand on the rock, we got caught up in the hype and did it anyway. A lot of people are jumping on and off, and it's very easy to get caught up in the hype. But you don't need to stand on the rock to enjoy your day. As you can see, the views down to the fjord are simply amazing. And while we would have loved for the sunshine to be out, the fog gave the place a really eerie feeling. And on the way down, we were lucky enough that the fog cleared and the rain stayed away. So we got some amazing views down to the fjord and all the way down to the town of Lysebotn, which is an absolutely beautiful small town that you must visit when you finish your hike.
And look at that. Unbelievable. Absolutely stunning. So if you do go and do this hike and you've got a car, then I would certainly encourage you to come down the hill the rest of the way. Again, I'll stuff the pronunciation up, but Lysebotn. You can see top of the hill here, up there. So that's the cafe that's right near the start of where the hike is. And you go 5 kilometers that way and up a mountain at the same time. And that rock dangles somewhere on the edge here, but much further down. And I'll tell you what, looking at the height from this direction gives you certainly a new perspective on how insane it is that so many people stand on this thing. Come here after you've stood on it, because if you do it beforehand, you won't stand on it. Look, it's ridiculous. So anyway, highly recommended. We had a great time. We were very lucky with the weather. You can see it's raining a little bit now, and we survived. So Cheers with a cold Norwegian coffee.
So we hit the road again for a near 3-hour drive to the town of Hovden, where we would stay the night. We were both very surprised the next morning when we set off again to see snow. I mean, it was the middle of summer, and it wasn't even that cold. But while snow-capped mountains around us was a nice surprise, this morning we were heading to the waterfall of Langfossen. The waterfall is over 600 metres high, and the sheer amount of water that comes over its face will absolutely blow your mind. When you're standing up close to this raging torrent of water, you will feel how violent and powerful it is as it thunders down the side of the mountain. But when you take a step back and view it from a distance, the violence of the water fades into the background and you can really appreciate the beauty of the place.
Tell you what, you don't know which way to look. On this side, you have the nice fjord, which looks amazing. But on this side is the big kahuna. Oh, look at that. Now you can't even see the top half. You can barely see where the water comes over that crest at the top, and it goes about twice as far past that. To see the rest, you've got to walk up there. We're considering it, but we're still pretty sore from yesterday, so I don't know, this might have to do.
So as much as we wanted to do the hike up to the top of Langfossen, we had other waterfalls to see. And just 20 minutes up the road is this beauty. The twin waterfalls at Latefossen. This one really takes you by surprise because when you're approaching by road, the falls are hidden by the surrounding mountains. It's only when you're right next to these massive streams of water that you see them out of the corner of your eye. It's very distracting, so if you are driving, make sure you drive slowly and you're very careful coming through this area because almost everyone is looking somewhere else. We then headed towards the town of Odda. It was supposed to be another 20-minute drive, but on the way we came across what might be the most magnificent lake I have ever seen. It is one of those places you really just have to see for yourself to fully appreciate. And the reason why I needed to include this in the video is because it's one of those places we weren't expecting and just stumbled across on the way, and it's up there with our favourite sites that we saw in all of Norway. We then pushed on to Odda, which I can only describe as another small town on a big fjord. This is typical of a lot of these old-style fishing villages that are all around these waterways, and it was a great place to stop for lunch before we pushed on.
So on the way to Bergen, we've had to get on a ferry to cross one of the fjords. It was actually very quick, a very easy process. This boat's massive, it can fit a lot of cars. Looks like maybe a 10-minute trip. Already come all the way from over there. Seas are very calm. It's a very nice inside area with big windows so you can enjoy the view without all the cold wind like I'm copping out here. Plus a cafe, bathrooms, all that. So another hour and 45 minutes to Bergen and we can settle in for the night.
And not long off the ferry, we spotted another powerful waterfall on the side of the road. At just 46 metres high, Steinsdalsfossen is one of the smaller waterfalls that we saw, but certainly one of the most powerful. There is a walkway that will take you all the way under the stream of water and onto a viewing platform on the other side. There you have a great view of the town in the background off in the distance, while getting up close to that powerful stream of water. That afternoon, we arrived at the city of Bergen. This coastal city is best known for being the wettest place in Norway. On average, it rains about 240 days every year, and true to form, it was gloomy. But we were still able to comfortably explore the city on foot. The highlights around the city centre included multiple places to get amazing seafood, street markets with even more seafood, including one vendor that was selling whale salami, or orca salami. Yes, the Norwegians eat whale. The waterfront promenade has more of those amazing wooden houses that are just bursting with character and charm. They even look interesting from the back. Just near the city centre, you can jump on a cable car to head up the mountain that overlooks the city of Bergen for the best views in the city. Only a lucky few will ever get to see this view with the sun shining, but the visibility was still okay for us and we would absolutely recommend visiting even if you do encounter a cloudy day, which is very likely. And while up there, we were reminded that we were more than 16,000 kilometres from home. That's about as far as you could possibly get. So it's a very pleasant city to explore on foot, but before we left, we had one more stop to make.
So after passing through, I don't know how many towns and asking for every shop we go into if they sell wine, someone finally told us that you actually can't buy it outside of a state-sponsored liquor store. So it's very Utah-like. Anyway, we hit the jackpot. So we've had to stock up on a few different types of wine because we probably won't find another one of these stores. Thank you. For the rest of the drive. And we've still got 5 or 6 nights and thousands of kilometres to cover. So at least now, after these long days hiking, we can settle in with a nice red wine.
From Bergen, we had the choice to go north along the coast or northeast back inland. We decided to go inland, and I'm so glad we did because the next 2 or 3 days were the best of the entire trip. Later that afternoon, we came across yet another amazing waterfall. This is Tvindefossen. It's almost like a mini version of Langfossen. It has a similar shape where the water cascades into a very broad cliff face, and it has a very majestic look to it. It's not as big as some of the other waterfalls that we've seen, but it's very picturesque and it belongs on a postcard. It was a 3-hour drive from Bergen all the way to Laerdal, where we found a holiday park right on the fjord's edge. It was a great value place to spend the night, have a wine party, and enjoy the view. The next day, we had a 2-hour drive to get to the Nigardsbreen Glacier. Here we would do a glacier hike that took us up to see some of the blue ice caves and various other icy formations. The round trip is about 4 hours long, and it's generally pretty easy, so anyone with moderate fitness will be able to navigate the hike no problem. There are 2 main highlights of the day. One is the blue ice cave, and the other is after you descend, there is a big archway at the foot of the glacier where all of the melted water is running off underneath the ice. Our next stop was the town of Olden, and this was my favourite overnight stay of the whole trip, and here's why. This is by far the nicest roadside motel I've ever seen. The room had a little kitchen in it as well, so we didn't have to go anywhere for the night and could just enjoy the view.
Who said that microwave dinners can't be inspired?
Amazing.
It's not bad. Once they give you a microwave and somewhere to chop something, that probably doesn't look great, but I actually reckon we did okay. I don't know what it cost us. How many krona?
I have no idea.
A lot less than the restaurant the other day, that's for sure.
The best thing about a Norway road trip is that it really doesn't matter which towns you stop at. They were all stunning in their own way. We looked at a whole bunch of videos and blogs before we came, and a lot of the towns we thought we'd stop at, we didn't, either through timing or just accommodation wasn't available because they've become a bit more popular. But every place we've stopped at has been amazing, and we stumbled across this little, beautiful little town with accommodation like this right on the water for half the price of what you'd get in the towns on either side. So don't be afraid to look around and just go to a place just because you like the look of the pictures. You'll find some amazing accommodation for very reasonable prices. You don't have to pay $400 or $500 a night for accommodation. This would have cost us $150 US, and it's amazing. I mean, look at it; it's absolutely fantastic.
We've been desperately wanting to stay, but we had to vacate the hotel. So we've made it about less than a kilometre down the road. You can see the hotel just there, that building there. So coffee and whatever that is.
Affogato.
Yeah, ice cream and coffee. And then we'll reluctantly leave.
Wow, the ice cream here is nice, darling. It's very creamy.
Yeah, is it better than the coffee?
Too early? Too early?
No.
Have a taste. Creamy.
Today we were headed to the tourist mecca of Geiranger. On the way there, we were surprised to find more snow and this big frozen lake just near the Geiranger skywalk. It really was an amazing sight, especially in the middle of summer. As we headed up the mountain towards the skywalk, I was worried that it would be icy cold up there. But it wasn't. It was fine to walk around in a t-shirt, and there you had absolutely magnificent views all the way to that town of Geiranger. When making our way back down towards the town, there's a long winding road with multiple viewing areas that overlook the fjord. Unfortunately, the sheer number of cruise ships that dock here can be a bit of an eyesore, and it fills the town with hundreds of elderly tourists every day, including the waterfall walk which runs straight through the middle of the town. One big positive though is in the evening, the cruise ships move away from the shoreline.
Quick update. The boat's gone. That helps. Looks much nicer now. Cheers.
It was becoming pretty clear to us that the best way to enjoy Geiranger was to get away from the town. So we jumped in a kayak to go and see the Seven Sisters waterfall, which is right opposite Lysebotn. There are boat tours that will take you there and back, but being in a kayak in between these mountains as you paddle down the fjord is a surreal experience all on its own. Plus, when you're in a kayak, you can get really close to the foot of the waterfalls and get a view that I just don't think you'll get on one of the boat tours.
So the way back is definitely harder than the way there, but the final bit of inspiration is the view back towards the town of Geiranger, however you meant to say it, and the waterfall that's staring us in the face that runs right through the middle of town. So we're nearly back. A well-deserved lunch. Then maybe some waffles from the chocolate place. I think I've earned it.
Our final stop was at a popular chocolate cafe, where we were dying to try their chocolate-coated waffles on a stick.
Crossing swords. Cheers.
Cheers. Hot.
And you can also do a chocolate tasting inside. We grabbed a few takeaways for the drive to come. On the way out of town, there's one more viewpoint that you can stop over to get one last look at the town and the fjord. Next, it was on to Trollstigen. This is the most epic place you will see in all of Norway. But before we got to the viewing point, we had to deal with some particularly aggressive sheep.
Oh my god.
I feel like there's nothing I can say that would adequately describe the spectacular landscape. So I'm going to shut up for a minute and just let the pictures speak for themselves. And when you get to the bottom, you can stop, turn around, and appreciate this view from a different angle. Our final 2 nights would be spent in the town of Sjoholt. This again sits on the edge of a fjord, and it seems no matter where we go, our accommodation always has some glimpse of water views. We would use this as our home base for a day trip to Alesund the next day, which is again on the west coast, before driving all the way back to Oslo on our last day. The view that welcomes you on your way into the town of Alesund is pretty amazing. It's a very artistic and colourful town and has an almost Venetian feel, with the canal that runs through the middle of town with the houses built right up to the water's edge. But outside of the viewing point and the architecture, we found there wasn't that much to do there. We did drive out to Godøya Island just past the town of Alesund, which faces directly out into the ocean. But we found this to also be a little bit plain. So we decided to head back to our accommodation and prepare for the long drive ahead. So we hit the road early in the morning to get back to Oslo, and were racing against the clock because we had a flight that afternoon. So while we didn't make any stops along the way, we were treated to some absolutely spectacular scenery that was amongst the best that we'd seen the whole trip. Arne was great company as always on the drive, and slept for about 4 of the 6 hours. It was her loss because she missed out on scenery like this. So while our 10-day road trip was coming to an end, we know that this won't be the last time we explore Norway. If we took a different turn anywhere along the way, we may have had a completely different experience. And of course, visiting in the winter time when the place is covered in snow is something that I would love to see one day.